All right. So, hey, everybody. We're back again. New perspective, fresh insight, new perspective. I'm sorry. I'm going to introduce myself, Demasha K, better known as Zip Mouth Motivation. And
Hello, my name is Dr. Sierra Davis, and I'm the owner of Holistic Soul Care, where I believe in holistic wellness, whether that's mental health, sound healing, prayer, meditation, just a variety of different ways that people can connect with the self. So glad to
great.
be here again.
Yes. So thank y'all. Last week, please forgive me. I wasn't feeling well at all. So we had to cancel, but we're back again. And tonight's subject is spirituality. But I want to give a disclaimer about it because I know like this is a sensitive subject for people right now, especially in today's time. And so this is an exploratory conversation. This is kind of like just to see like where you at, like what do you believe, what are you holding on to, what are you hoping for, what are you standing on, what are your values, what are your morals. So the intention is just to create a conversation, not to dispute, not to battle about who's what is right and who's this and what. That's not what we're talking about. We just have an exploratory conversation because when you live, you have some kind of faith in something. You believe in something. You know what I'm saying? So this is just the conversation to make sure that that something is stable and it's true and it lines up with who you are and it's supporting you mentally, physically, emotionally. So I'm gonna let Doctor take the lead, and she's gonna give you a definition of what spirituality is, and then we're gonna go for it. You are welcome to comment. You know, if you got questions, if you want to chime in, because we read the questions. So we going.
Yes, yes. Okay. So this is the topic of spirituality. Thank you for that disclaimer, as I know the term can really um, trigger people for better or for worse. So I'm just going to go over just some of the very basics. I mean, we could talk about spirituality for forever. It could be its own workshop. But spirituality really looks at connection with the self, really connection with from the self to something bigger than yourself. So it's believing that there's something bigger outside of yourself. It involves living in a reverent manner, in a sacred manner. It really looks at kind of the way that you kind of lead your life. There's a lady by the name of Christina Pulowski. She's a MD and she's a leader in the area of incorporating spirituality into healthcare. And she defines it as an aspect of humanity that refers to the way individuals seek and express meaning and purpose, and the way that they experience that connectedness to the moment, to themselves, to nature. And so it really looks at really just kind of simply looking at there's something beyond me that's out there that's going on. Now, religion is often used interchangeably. Religion looks at an institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices. So, oftentimes, many people will express their spirituality through religion, through an organized set of beliefs. This could be houses of worship, this could be sacred texts, this could be rituals, observing certain holidays, things like that. So, um, the two terms can be used interchangeably. For example, some people consider themselves spiritual, but not necessarily religious. So they may believe that there's something bigger than themselves. They might connect with things like nature, things like that, but might not necessarily see themselves as religious, meaning following necessarily a set of precepts um, and like I said, like an institutionalized sort of thing. And then there's some people who feel that they're religious, but not necessarily spiritual. And I know people like that as well, that definitely much more religious than spiritual. So, um, spirituality looks at that inward journey that involves a shift in awareness, rather than necessarily an external activity, which is can tend to be more like religion. Spirituality is about more of an inner understanding, more so than an outward worship sort of thing. And so again, these kind of can be interchangeably used interchangeably, and they can be done the same. So worship can be a part of spirituality as well. So they can, they can coexist. So that's just the basics of that. What else do I want to share? Um, Typically, spirituality, if I'm talking to someone in a counseling encounter, for example, um, in terms of spirituality, because spirituality is a known form of wellness. So, wellness incorporates a variety of things like physical fitness, financial wellness. But spirituality is known, research wise, to be an important component of wellness. So, just like we talk about being physically well, spirituality is listed as one of those things. So, what does this look like? This looks like talking to people about, do they find meaning in life? What do they have purpose in life? That's spirituality. And for some people, they might not feel that way, but that is a spiritual conversation, not necessarily talking about, do you go to church, but kind of extending beyond the self. Um, so I might talk to someone about, um, you know, how do you find purpose? Where do you gauge your strength from? Your resilience, kind of going to those things. But again, there's so many different perspectives on it. But again, it's helping people connect to something outside of themselves. And so, yeah, I'll stick with that, and then I have some other points for later on. So, yes.
Okay, great. So, what's your definition of spirituality? That's what, like the book is, but how would you break it down to someone if someone said, like, what's spirituality to you? Because I think, like, in today we have, like, like there's a battle going on. You know what I'm saying? There's a battle going on of what's religious, what's spiritual, what's this, and what's that, and what's this. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, I know, like people say, oh, well, I'm connected to nature. And then people say, well, you know what I'm saying? So if I was coming to you and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm spiritual or I'm really, like I don't know what I am. You know what I'm saying? What would be your response to me?
Mm. See, that's good. I think there's so many different ways to answer that. And for me, it would start with understanding who you are as a person. I mean,
Okay.
because I could go so many different ways with so
Right.
many different people. Um, so if someone's saying, I want to be, so okay, I'll use this as an example. I often have people connect with me and say, I feel like I need more help with my spirituality. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, or I feel like I'm in a spiritual, oh, what's the word? I'm going through a spiritual awakening.
Right.
That's a
Right.
big buzzword right now,
Right.
especially as a lot of people are tapping into it. And so I think I'll start there. And then, so again, I could, it's so big. And so
Right.
oftentimes I'll ask people, what's going on for you? So it's, again, so it's important for me to get to know the person, but then I
Right.
want to know, okay, what's going on for you, and I want to kind of get a gauge of how do they feel about what spirituality means to them, because it does mean different things to
To
different
different
people. And for
people.
some people,
Exactly.
spirituality does mean religion. It's one and the same.
Right.
And so, what I would say is, um, if someone wants to tap in, I'll say, okay. To me, it always goes down to goals and dreams and where they want to be, and
Right.
then I kind of extend out in terms of, okay. Um, how do we kind of get there? But then I'm trying to think of a kind of a concrete way of how I connect the dots with people. It's always kind of basically trying to understand them and where they want to go.
Right.
Because for me, it's really important that I don't put any of my beliefs on people or
Exactly.
try to persuade people to believe the way I believe. I believe
Right.
that it's my job to help facilitate um,
Exactly.
exploration with people of what they need. And so for me, it's asking a lot of questions. And a lot of that is, where do you want to go, and where are you feeling like you're being led to go?
Right.
And then,
Right.
if based on what they're saying, then I feel it's my job to support them and to help that flourish within themselves. I'm just very careful about not wanting to dictate people's beliefs based
Right.
on how I do myself, because everyone's different.
And
So
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I think that's like really important, and that's kind of like what I was getting at, because like we base our beliefs and we want everybody to believe the same way that we believe, because we believe that we are right and everybody else is wrong. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
then, like you said, everybody has a different definition as to, because sometimes it's conjoined. Like I know people who attend church and they say they're spiritual, but they attend church. You know what I'm saying? So we don't really know. And I think like in today, people are attacking each other. You know what I'm saying? Like they're attacking each other when it's not about that per se. It's about like, what do you need? Like what's going on within yourself that you feel like this is my walk. This is my journey. You know what I'm saying? Like what's happening. And I think people are just like imposing. It's like when you talk to someone, you have to talk to them with like a blank. Like, okay, this has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you. Because after the conversation, they may be like, I ain't even on the journey. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
we just had a whole conversation about XYZ thing, but I'm not on a journey. So that's why I said we should have an exploratory conversation as to what's going on within yourself. Because generally, for me, they go hand in hand. Mr. Derek say for him, they go hand in hand. So it's both of them. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand that. And so instead of attacking, let's find out what's happening. Like what's going on.
Right.
Because it may be nothing or it may be something. You know what I'm saying? I
Yes.
know personally people have to have some kind of faith or
Mm-hmm.
belief or something that kind of, they have to believe in something. You know what I'm saying? No matter what it is, people have to believe in something. But how do you get them to the point to where their foundation is stable in what they believe in, and they're not going this way, that way, up, down. They don't know what to believe. They don't know who to believe. They like taking in all this information, but they're not solid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's a process, again, like an exploratory process, of
Mhm.
because I do find that a lot of people share that they often are dictated by what other people feel that they should believe, or what other people are pushing for them, but it might not necessarily resonate for them. And it might not just be, oh, you need to change your religion. It could be certain thought processes within their certain religion, or um, certain expressions to prove that, that they are whatever they say they are. So, it's just really important for me to understand kind of who they are and what they're feeling, and the conflict, if there's a conflict, or if they want to tap more into it, talking to them more about that. I find some people just need that extra support, especially support that's unbiased, that
Right.
um, that's not trying to necessarily dictate. I find oftentimes a lot of people just feel the pressure um, of just the pressure of family, or
Mhm.
friends, but yet they haven't really explored it for themselves, and that conflict can be hard, um,
Right.
and it can make you feel some sort of way.
We're going to talk about that conflict. Oh, Miss Mary talked. She talked about true fact. Correct. It's a process and a walk we must believe in and stay focused. Very true. Like very true. We have to stay focused. But the conflict, where does the conflict normally come in? You know what I'm saying? Because there's always a conflict, but where does a conflict normally come in?
Hmm. I find a lot of times the conflict can be when people feel that their lifestyle doesn't go in line with whatever the religious practices or their religion says that so maybe they feel like they're living a double life, or
Mm,
so they're not necessarily living what they profess, or so there can be a split there, or
right.
um, an imbalance there. So that can, cause it, which we know can cause all types of things like guilt and
Right.
everything else.
Right.
Um, oh gosh, what was say that question again one more time?
Like, where does the conflict come in? Like, when
Yeah,
people are trying to find that foundation as to what they
yeah,
believe, you know what I'm saying, and what direction that they're going in, there's always a conflict. And like a lot of them are, because it could be a lot of things. It could be how
what
you
do you
grew
think?
up. It could be what you believe, what you're ashamed of, what you're not. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of stuff comes
Yeah,
in play, but kind of like, how do we get to the place to where we feel like this is what I'm gonna do and I'm gonna do it? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
how do we get to that place where the conflict is no longer an issue? Like for me, it was I had a conflict. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a conflict of what I know or what I thought I knew or how I know, you know what I'm saying? So I had a
yeah,
conflict. So then I'm like, okay, what do I do? You know what I'm saying? What do I do? Because it's so much stuff in the world right now, and there's so much misleading stuff.
yeah,
The solid, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the lineup? Is it my values? Is it my morals? Is
yeah,
it what I believe to be true? And how do I do that without a conflict?
yeah. Well, sometimes the
Hmm.
conflict is inevitable, and that
Right,
and that's a lot of work. Helping people kind of accept that and then work through that. I think
right,
sometimes the struggle can be fighting against the fact that there's a conflict,
right,
trying to avoid it. But kind of going back to your first question, like, where does it come, where does that disconnect come from? I think it can come from life experiences. We grow, things move, we move forward.
right,
Trauma, different things like that can lead us to think, okay, what do I believe? Do I believe that, we can
right,
get into this, this crisis where life experiences can really, um, can take us there and can have us really looking at that. And kind of, as we'll kind of talk later,
right,
this is really why spirituality is really important, because it can serve as a buffer to a lot of traumatic experiences in terms of helping us with that resilience. But
right.
um, but yeah, okay, we got some comments here. Mary James, conflict is normally believing in the right versus the wrong. It's just like good and evil, which weighs the most burdens.
Mm,
So that
mm,
push and pull. Um,
right,
Derek, I try my best to get in my own space to work through those struggles. So, yeah, and I think that leads to the second question of how do we do that? And some people, that works for a certain time, and then sometimes you have to extend out. In terms, like you said, how do we deal with that? Mentoring, which is really important, especially if you can find a spiritual mentor or a mentor that can understand. Um, how life works from a spiritual perspective, that can get there, and not everyone can do that. Um,
right.
so yes, so that push and pull, conflict comes from what you know versus what you're now learning, what you knew versus what you're
Mhm.
now learning. Yeah, so it's like, gosh, I grew up knowing this or I knew this, but now I'm learning all this new stuff. So you have all this new input with all this other stuff, and now you're having to hold both and figure out, okay, what's that? And that's really normal. And I think that's what I want
Right,
to really undermine here, is that
right,
sometimes people come to us and they feel that something's wrong with them because they're in this space.
right,
But that's really good, because that's a part of growth, because you're finding your own lane in terms of, you're not just passively accepting information, you're integrating that,
right,
and I forget the term for it, but you're integrating that to a point where you're having to sit with yourself and say, okay, where, how do I feel about this? And
right.
that's really normal. That's a part of growth. And that's a part of, people say, I'm in a spiritual awakening. That's typically a big part of it, is like, something's not fitting for me anymore, or I'm not sure. And that's okay. I think
I think
sometimes,
I definitely think that's where people get it's where they sway a little bit, and and what they believe and what they do and what, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, well, is this okay that I feel this way? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had people come to me before and they say, like, I no longer know what I believe. And I say, that's okay. And they're like, that's not
Yes,
okay. Yes, it is. It's
exactly.
okay. It's okay. So
Yeah.
that means now you have to take the time out and you have to research and you have to find out like who you are truly to understand what you believe and why you believe it and why you're aligned with that. Or if you had trauma with your parents, where like a lot of times people will have like deep trauma with their parents, where it's like, well, my parent made me do this every Wednesday. They made me do this and they made me do this, so I
I
no
had to be
longer
in,
want to.
yeah,
Right, I no
break
longer
that
want
off.
to do this thing no more because they made me do this.
Yeah.
But but once they start to know who they are, they decide, okay, well, I actually do like doing that. You know what I'm saying? But you have to be careful when you're deciding what your walk is, where
Hmm.
your walk is going, how to walk your walk, because you have to make sure that there is research with that, there's no trauma added to that, and it's something that you are doing. Because if you don't want to do something, you're not going to stay in it. If it's not
Hmm.
something that you truly want to do, you're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The spirit will test the spirit. Definitely.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so, in order to be solid, you have to learn like who you are.
Yeah.
Is this something I want to do? Does this align with who I am?
Yes.
And
Right.
then,
I'm listening. Yeah.
oh, no, no, no. I'm saying, and then process as to, like,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid. I think people are afraid to say, like, I'm just going to take a break. I'm taking a break and
Yeah.
I'm going to decide what it is. And so you push and push and push and push and push. And then you end up all over the place. You end up doing this and then you end up doing that. And then you end up here. But you're trying to find that very first feeling that you had when you had a foundation, when you felt like you're trying to find that very first feeling, like either whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever it is that, your spirituality, your religion, whatever, you're trying to find that very first feeling, but you don't know why you're doing this. So you have to ask yourself, why? What makes this my thing?
Right. Why does it align with me? What parts of it I connect with? One of
Hmm.
the things that I grew up hearing in the church and at home through my grandparents is you have to for me, they would tell me you have to, because we went to church, we were there 4 or 5 times a week. We was there Sunday, we were there Sunday from, talking about spirituality and religion,
Right.
from the very first, what do you call it, you have to go as a little kid, the
Like Sunday
before the
school
church,
or
yes,
yeah.
before the church starts, and then we'd be there and leave at 3, and then come back at 5 and be there till 9. Then we'd be back there Wednesday night. Then we back there Thursday night. But I remember them always telling me that you have to know God for yourself. This
Mm.
has to become real for you. And I heard that so much, and it wasn't real. I mean, I understood it. I mean, I did understand it cognitively, emotion. I understood it, but it didn't become real to me until I started getting older and had my own spiritual journey where I
Right.
realized, oh, mama, grandma was talking about this from that experience. Oh, I got my own. I have my own now. So
Right.
now I know, for me, I've learned that this, whether it's the spiritual part, which for
Right.
me is not necessarily, it's combined, but not necessarily. But whether it's that private devotion or whether um, it's the religious going to church, it has to connect with me personally beyond what my
Right.
family did or even what they exposed me to. If it doesn't, then it's not, it's not real. And they always told me that. And I found that to be true. If I can't depend or stand on their spirituality, although they did put me in that space, as I've grown, I realized, okay, where does this fit for me? Where do I
Right.
connect with this? Um, and not necessarily, necessarily take it based on their experience, because that's their life, And so, um,
Right.
You know, that's
Right.
that's what I've had to learn is, how does this connect with me? Okay, we
Right.
have another comment here. Okay, Mary James says, I had to learn to grow and focus on me and not the world. Oh, that's good. I'm on my spiritual journey thanks to Damasha. Awesome.
Oh,
Damasha is
you
awesome,
trying
I
to make
tell
me
you.
cry.
Yes, that's awesome. Loving me first. How I learned from myself is I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. My circle is small now that I am focused. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Mary, for sharing.
Yes, thank you. Don't
Um,
be making me cry.
yeah,
Big old cry baby, be crying
that's
about it. The
beautiful.
wind blow. I'm like, the wind
And that's
blew.
okay. And I think it's great. I mean, she covered so much within that. I mean,
We can
it,
tackle it one at a time.
you ain't lying.
Learn to grow. You know what I'm saying? And that takes a process. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're
Yes.
deciding like what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like what your alignment. And when I say like learn to grow, is mean like what you just said. I have
Yes.
my own now. I know what my family taught me. I know what my parents taught me. I know what auntie, uncle, whoever raised you, I know what they taught me, but I have to learn for myself in order for it to stick. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Because it's almost like you holding on to somebody's coattail and you really don't know why you're doing this. So you have no foundation except for like it's a program for you. It's just like I do that. You know what I'm saying? Um, and focus on me. I think we just
That's
scared to
it.
focus on ourselves. Like we so scared
Yes.
to focus on who we are and what we're doing. I always hear people like growing up, they'll say, well, if I ain't, if I, I'm gonna worry about myself because if I don't worry about myself, who's gonna worry about me? And if I don't worry about myself, I can't worry about nobody else. But I never see nobody stick to it. I
Mm,
never
mm,
see people stick to it. I heard it my
mm.
whole life growing up. But then
Yeah.
I see them like over here with this person, over that with this person, doing this for this person. I was like, when I
Mm-hmm.
grow up, I ain't doing that. I don't know what y'all doing, but I'm not doing
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
I'm gonna learn how to focus on me because if I'm not right, I can't help nobody else. I can't do
Exactly.
nothing for nobody else. Um, and I would say like not to focus on the world. It's a lot of stuff that happen in the world. I'm it's a lot of stuff that happen in the world. I'm not a TV watcher. If you know me, you know I barely ever watch television. I don't want to know. It's not that I don't care. It's that spiritually I feel like I'm in tune. If it's something that needs to be put in my space, it's going to be put in my space. I'm not going to be able to run from it. I'm not going to be able to deny it. It's going to come right to me like this happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um so and sometimes like it's so much going on and it's so much personal stuff that goes on because people are a lot and I don't want to offend but some people are not truly healing, so when they get across these platforms and they start talking about different things, they're talking about their personal insight and they're projecting it out to the people. And I'm not saying like everybody does that, but there's a lot of people like I'll
Yeah.
watch and I'll be like, oh, no, no, no. That was completely
Mm-hmm.
personal. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So
Yeah.
then it deters other people from their walk or from their journey or from their what they're trying to learn for themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful what you're ingesting. You know what
So
I'm
true.
saying? So I'm very careful what I'm ingesting. So TV and a lot of different stuff, I don't be into that. Um, and your journey is about you.
Mm-hmm.
Your journey is 100% about you. It's not about nobody else and about what they want you to do and how they want you to do it. I promise you, if you start searching within yourself, and I mean like searching within yourself, meaning like healing, like really healing, like those dark nights when you by yourself and you just crying in the middle of your floor and you don't know why you're crying and there's nobody
Mm-hmm.
there to call. Is nobody there to say anything to you except for you got to say to yourself, Demasha,
Yeah.
get up,
Mm-hmm.
get up. What you crying for?
Mm-hmm.
You already knew this about yourself. Now you have to really deal with that stuff. We scared
Mm-hmm.
to be alone and we're scared to deal with, and I don't want to say demons because I don't want anybody to think of, but we scared to deal with that stuff in the closet.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
are
For
scared to
sure.
deal with that stuff, you know. And so
Yeah.
when you get out of that fear space and you start dealing with that stuff, you know, like even though people, a lot of people like, oh, Demasha, you so sweet, you so nice, and you so quiet, and da 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 da. It was some ugly stuff inside of me.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that, like, it was some ugly stuff. Like, I was checking myself, like, girl, what's wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
what?
And then I'm gonna add in there too, sometimes people feel that because you're in a spiritual journey or you're growing, that means that you still, that ugly stuff still can't coexist. And I think that's something we need to talk about also, or put out there, is that I think that's where a lot of shame can come in. Not saying that
Mhm.
we want to hold on to all, that we want to hold on to stuff that we know we need to, but it is a journey. And so I find sometimes um there can be this need to just spirituality, we a lot call it the shadow self, that stuff that none of
Mhm.
us, we all have the good and bad. But the bad we sometimes tend to want to just throw off and just all want to have the good. But part of growth is understanding that you know that's part of the journey, that we're
Right.
not all just just these positive people all the time, like that, that shadow self is there. And it's a
Right.
process to, thank you for coming, Mary. Enjoy your night as well. That it's a process to work through it. And I think, there can be um, this eagerness and this, this push to just want to just be that perfect person right now,
Right.
realizing that, it's a walk every day. We're working on things. And that healing can take time, the trauma, the upset, the anger, angry attitude, that
Mhm.
didn't, just show up overnight. So, we have to be careful to give ourselves some grace and other people, which that might be a whole nother conversation.
Oh
Um,
no.
child, um, to really go through that growth process. Um,
Right.
but anyway, so yeah, that can go into another lane. But
I mean, that's definitely you're
yeah,
gonna have you're not going to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? And I think when people are, they hear so many things about what's good and bad in their spiritual walks and how you're not supposed to do this and how, and you can't, and no, wait a second, you know what I'm saying? But those
yes,
things take time. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't, and you might, it might be something that you feel like, okay, I'm done with that. But 2 or 3 years later, it might come back up again. So now you find yourself in a space to where you like, you feel ashamed. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And so like, that's not a solid foundation because you have to know that in any walk that you're walking, any journey that you're walking, spiritually, religious, whatever, you have to know that nobody is perfect and you're going to step back sometime and you're gonna have to pick yourself up and you're gonna have to step forward and then you might take another 10. The whole goal is not to stop the journey. You know what I'm saying? That's the
right,
whole goal. Like,
exactly.
don't
That's
stop
good.
the journey. Keep, like, this is my journey. The whole goal is to find a foundation. And who's to say, like, sometimes a foundation isn't shooken, or it doesn't rise up, or it's not laid right, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it's different things that happen with a foundation, but you have to find something and know this is yours something. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't tell you what is right or wrong. I can't tell you if you like this is complete. I can't tell you that because there's so much stuff going around. I might tell you like, you shouldn't be doing that, and then you might see Dr. Sierra, and she might be like, oh, that's okay to do. This is why it's important to find that thing within, like to find that space within where it's like, okay, I'm changing me. I'm walking. I'm gonna be lined up with my values, with my morals, with what my truth is, and just keep walking.
Hmm.
Don't stop.
And that's what spirituality is. It's understanding what your values are and living a life that's in line with those values. That's the
Mm,
spirituality part. You know, and when we work with people is, and again, it's not necessarily. because I think sometimes people can be triggered when you say, "Oh, spirituality," and they automatically think, "Oh, you want to make me go to church?" That's a really sensitive topic for people.
Lots of
I find,
people.
especially a lot of people that were forced to go and didn't really want to. But
Hmm.
when we talk about spirituality, I think what you just said is what are your values? Again, we're talking about meaning in life outside of yourself, and are you living a life that fits your values, that fits how you feel that you want to live, and helping people become congruent with that the way that they live, the way that the way that they believe coincides with the life that they live. That in counseling we call
Mm.
that congruency. That the person you are at home is the person you are outside. Not saying that we don't have different roles, but who you are as a person yourself
Right.
isn't split into all these different people where it's not a cohesiveness. That's what
Right.
that's what a big component of spirituality is helping people tap in to the self and to live that congruency.
Right. So they're not split. It's like I have to be. It's almost like a child. When you're a child, you got to act one way with your mama, one way with your daddy. You can act another way with your grandma. No, it's about bringing everything together. You know what I'm saying? And finding that, okay, this is me. And not saying like when you go home, you might yell at your kids a little bit. You're not yelling at the kids
Yeah.
outside of your home, but just the total of who you are, like what lines up in your life. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
think that people struggle with that part because of what they hear. Don't do this, don't this. I was raised like this, that, and the other. I remember we had a conversation, and you were saying that people just assume that because we grew up together, we went to church together, that we're besties, but that's not what it is. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like you have to get to know yourself all over again, figure out like what you believe, what is aligned up, and then how can I bring this thing together and be who I truly am so you can find peace.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, it's really looking at who you are internally, like concepts like when we talk about the soul, your higher
Mhm.
self, some people like the divinity within. That's some of the terms that can be connected, especially in the spiritual community. People hear those terms, they're pretty, I mean, they've been around forever, but they're buzzwords now. Hold
Right.
on, if you hear the thunder, but so yeah, those are some of the terms you might hear floating around is connecting to my higher self, um, you know, understanding my soul, the
Mhm.
divinity within, those sorts of things. That's kind of spiritual terms where people are really talking about connecting internally, and doing that process. So
Right.
yeah, doing that inner work to really understand the self, um,
Right.
and
Right.
that's a journey.
Oh, it's
So
a
all
big
right.
journey. All right, so this doesn't add up. So when you get to that space to where it's like this don't add up for me. I don't feel like I am. I feel like I'm six Demarshals.
Mm,
How or what are some things I can do to bring it in? And like, and how is it affecting me mentally? Because that's the big thing. You know what I'm saying? Effects of mental are like major effects. You know what I'm saying? Like it's stressful for me to leave my house and I got to be like this. But then when I come back in my house, I got to be like this. And then when I go here, I got to be like this. But I need this. This is my journey. You know what I'm saying? How can I bring all of that in?
ooh, I think that, yeah, that's twofold. I think for me, if I always think personally, and then I think as the practitioner helping
Mhm.
facilitate this. So,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of our audience is both, like they're practitioners and they're you know people who are gathering information, potential clients, things like that.
Right.
The practitioner, well, it's basically the same in terms of how I do myself, and then practitioner. But for me, it's questions and it's exploratory activities for people to tap into who they are.
Right.
And you know that, you know, with what we have coming up with those activities, it's really to really, when you talk about like, okay, there's 8 of me, or I have to act this way, but that's really not who I am. I'm really this person, and I'm tired of, you know, that's hard. Hey, good evening, Joanne. You late? That's okay.
Hey,
You can catch
it's
the
all
replay,
right.
and you can just dive right on in. Um, so yeah, how do you, if you're all these different people at different times, how do you become congruent? How do you become a person where you're the same? And again, like we say, everyone has different roles. Like who you are at work is going to be different um,
Hello.
hi than who you are at home. That's just natural. You know, you're not going to
Right.
be the same with your partner as you are with your coworkers. But we're
Mhm.
talking about who you are as a person. That the essence of who you are, your
Right.
personality. That's not totally different. In everywhere. So for me, it's helping people have conversations, so asking the right questions and having activities with people that they can tap into their self. Because I find that if people are split like that and they feel that they're different people all the time, for me, I find it's typically because there's some type of confusion, or there's not a foundation of the self. There's not an understanding of who I am and an
Right.
acceptance of that. Because you can say this is who I am, but accepting it can be another conversation.
Right.
And so I've often find that people do that because they want to be accepted in all these different spaces. So I'm with
Mhm.
these friends, so I have to act this way so that they'll accept me,
Right.
so that
Right.
they'll, and then my church people, I act that way because I want them to accept me, or I feel like I have to act a certain way with the church people,
Right.
or so I find it comes to a foundation is acceptance of, I have to do this so that all these people will accept me in these spaces. So for me, it's a conversation on, okay, let's have a conversation on who you are, or who you feel that you are, because that's always developing, and most of the time,
Right.
when they come to us, they're not sure. So
Right.
it's exploratory conversations about who they are, what do they like, foundational things. And then oftentimes it's conversations about who do you feel that you have to be to other people. And oftentimes people
Wow.
talk about the pressure. So when you're with the church people, who do you feel that you have to be, and where does that expectation come from, where you have to do this, and what parts of what you're doing don't feel good to you. So so that's a conversation too. Well, I like doing this, but this really isn't who I am. I just don't believe that. Okay, so it's a bunch of appropriate conversations to help
Right.
people tap into kind of the self, um, and it's asking the right questions to help facilitate that internal work.
Right.
But I find it's often not knowing yourself and needing to be accepted, um,
Right.
and yeah.
I can
And so,
agree.
what do you think? What are some of the things that you find?
I definitely find that acceptance is a big thing for people. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, people have a hard time being alone. They have a hard time getting into that space by themselves, or not being like the center of attention. Mr. Derek said, if the spirit is everything and everywhere, then the one who walks in the spirit also has to do and be one in multiple roles. True. But at the same time, we have to create a balance. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that balance comes from accepting who you are, accepting that I'm comfortable with this, but I'm not comfortable with that, and saying, like, it's okay. So a lot of that, like, you're going to be mom at home, you're going to be Sierra, when you're with me, you're going to be at your job, and like all of those different people. But how do you stay true to who you are? And that's kind of just like accepting in each space, this is who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm Sierra, the main person, and then I'm still Sierra when I'm mom. I'm still Sierra when I'm wife. I'm still Sierra. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah,
still that same person, but I have multiple roles that I play in life. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Exactly. And those roles, I mean, that's part of life, and like Derek said, when we're, if we're spiritual beings, we do have to be in different roles.
Mm-hmm.
But the core of what we're talking about is even within those roles, the essence of who you are should be the same. The
Yes.
essence of who you are, my personality is not going to be the same as a wife as I am with coworkers. I mean, that's just not that's just natural. I shouldn't, treat
Right.
coworkers the same way I treat my husband. So
Yeah.
roles are going to be different, but the people, the coworkers and my husband should still know the same person, who I am as a person, that
Mm-hmm.
core person. That's what we're talking about. Even in the roles, there shouldn't be a separate person where they're like, well, when I meet you at this place, who are you? Like, you talk different, you got a totally different attitude about the same thing that you had, like totally different everything. That's what we're
Right.
talking. That
Because
should be a
there's a separation between self and roles.
yeah,
There's a
exactly.
separation. There's a complete separation between self and roles. I'm Damasha. You know what I'm saying? Most people know me in every role to be silly. So that's a
Yeah,
part of who I am. Most people know me in every role to be loving and caring. And you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
To be just one of those genuine people with you. You know me in that role. But when I'm at home, I will get on my kids. I'm going to get them. They're going to wash these dishes and they're going to make sure this stuff clean. You know what I'm saying?
right.
And
And
then,
that's
like,
okay.
like if I'm at work, then I have to be gentle with some of my people, and some of the people I can't be gentle with. But I'm still Demasha, but I'm still, that silly part still comes out of me. That loving
Yeah,
part is definitely going to come out of me. So it's
right.
accepting, like I accepted this is who I am. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? But I have separate things that I do. So then when it comes to my spirituality, my foundation is like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Because it's aligned up with my values, my morals, my truth, my genuineness. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying my because I want people to understand this is an inner experience.
yeah, it's
This is
personal for
not
sure.
yeah, it's 100% personal. This is not about me imposing what I believe and telling you what you should do. This is something that you have to get it for yourself, because if you don't get it, then you're going to let it go and you're going to miss it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Joanne says we should be able to be your ourselves no matter what, no matter what it is, as long as you're doing it respectful and in order. I agree.
Oh, I like
So,
that.
and there's a freedom that comes with that. I love that too. As long as you're being respectful, and I love that, and in order. That's beautiful. You're not, you know, I think there's a freedom that comes from being yourself. Again, different roles is different roles. But when you can be yourself and know that you don't have to put on for other people, that
Right,
that who you are is good enough. So again, that's kind of
right,
going back to when we talk about how do we work with people with this. It's really working on that self, it's working on that self-esteem. So, understanding where that need to be accepted comes from, and then helping people understand that you're whole and in and of itself, and that you're a gift to those spaces. So shifting it from needing to be accepted in those spaces and to understanding that you're a gift to those spaces. That's where a lot of that, when your presence is there, that the atmosphere is better because you're there, not you're better because the other people are giving you that work. That's that kind of work.
right.
There's a freedom that comes in that you can kind of hopefully lay those burdens down. Okay, so we have 6 minutes. Where are we left in kind of what we want to cover? We got into a lot. Let's
Yeah,
see.
we did get into a lot. We can the shift. You know what I'm saying? I'll let you go with the shift.
So this is the shift from kind of where you were to where you want to be. I think that kind of think, where do I want to go with this? I think the shift, I think of a lot of things. I think Mary talked about it earlier. Um, the shift can be, I'll just cover some of the things that I think could be helpful as people are shifting. I think the shift can be lonely at times.
Hmm.
Um, And I think I say that to normalize that for people, because I think sometimes that's one of the main things that I hear people saying is this is a lonely journey.
Right.
And I think at times it can be, and I think at times it doesn't have to be, when you surround yourself with people who understand and can be supportive,
Right.
which leads into what Mary was saying earlier about working with you, and and the growth that she has with working with you is that sometimes, especially early on, you don't really know if you coming or going, or you have so many thoughts. There's so much input. So typically people are on social media. They're hearing a lot of different speakers. They're reading a lot of books. Oftentimes in the beginning, sometimes you just want to download information. So you're listening to everybody. You listen to all the preachers or all of the I can't get my words right tonight, but all of the
Philosophers.
philosophers. Thank you. So but us, psychology people and psychologists, we get into reading too, and so we take on all this, and then what happens is you have all these different viewpoints, and you have all of this stuff to filter through to then kind of get to, I forget who it was earlier, to get to who you are as a person. So it can be hard because it's like, well, they said this, and this preacher said this, and that prophet said this, and so it's like, you know, so a lot of my work is, okay, I understand that. What do you allow? What connects with you? And then let's okay, that's good, because that's helping you understand yourself. And then let's talk about you. But it can
we,
be, uh-huh.
we have just a few questions. So Miss Joanne was saying yes, and so true. She was agreeing with you. And
Okay.
then it says most are always alone until they find their true soul tribe. 100%. I mean, people are always alone until they find those genuine people around them that, like you said, that understand kind of like what you're going through or where you are right now. And you'll get to that space to where it's like, I just want to be by myself. You know what I'm saying? And I like how you said, like, we start intaking all of this information. You know, my big thing is education. So I like to read and I love
Me
information. I'm
too.
like an information crazy person. So and you start pulling all of this stuff from everywhere else, and then you don't even you're not even looking within. So that's why it's like the focal point to get back focused and like, okay, all of that information is good information, and those are good philosophers, and I'm not taking nothing away from
Mm-mm.
anybody because I read and I study and all of that stuff. But sometimes you have to go inside and say, wait a minute, I heard what they said, but does this align up with who I am?
Mhm,
You got
mhm,
to go back and recheck yourself.
mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so that because this is your journey and this is your walk and this is your faith, whatever you believe, this is your thing. You can't always look at what everybody else is saying because their perspective may be completely different from yours perspective.
Yeah. I don't see the name on mine, but someone said everything you need to know is already within you. It's already within you. So that's what I would tell, everyone has their own philosophy in terms of how they work with people. But that's one of the things that always tell people is, I feel that when I work with people, that you already have it within. It's my job to facilitate what's already inside. That's one of my personal philosophies as a helper is, how can I ignite the spark? How can I shed a light on what's already there? How can I
Right.
help you accept what you know deep down inside that might be covered up, but how can I help facilitate that? Because I do believe that. I believe that what what it's what your needs is already within. It's just a matter of it coming out, and a matter of it, and a matter of people feeling safe enough, because this is kind of, the helpers, all of us helpers on here and in the comments, it's really as a foundational level to help people. We have to help people feel safe enough to bring what's in out, even if it's something that, you know um might not be aligned with how they feel or with their growth. People still have to be able to get it out first in order
Right.
for that to grow. And so, that comes down to, that non-judgmental presence. So this is kind of the helper part.
Right.
That and not even just, and I'm not saying a mental health professional or a life coach. I mean just people who are helping
Just
people
people in
at
general.
a
Right.
foundational level, and that's all of us. Is people have to feel that they can be their true selves, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, so that they can feel safe. If they
Right.
feel that they're going to be judged, or if they feel that that they're not going to have a space to talk, that every time they talk we're going to want to talk over them and
Right.
dictate to them, then people aren't going to feel safe to undergo this journey. So um
Right.
and that's a skill as well, but people have to feel safe to do that, um in order to go on this journey, because it is sensitive. It's
Right.
sensitive.
It's very sensitive, and I'm like you. I feel like it's like you have to let people be who they are. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter at the end of the day because it absolutely has nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? It everything to do with who they are. And if you respect them, if you're genuine, if you're understanding, you're going to be able to allow them to have that safe space to be them. You know what I'm saying? I tell people like, when people they feel acting out of character, quote unquote, I say they're okay. They'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they'll figure it out because that's what life is about. It's about you figuring it out, finding your space. You know what I'm saying? And once you find your space or you find that safe place, you'll start asking questions like, well, what about this? Or what about that? And then you want to make sure that when someone is providing you with an answer, it's an answer to support you, not an answer for them to dump on you what they feel or for them to say, well, you need to be doing this and you need to be no, 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 no. You need to be searching within, like, what do you feel? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think? You know what I'm saying? Like I ask people all the time when they come and they got advice. I'm like, well, what do you think about? Like, what did you?
Yeah.
I'm asking you for advice, but I'm trying to figure out what was your thought. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was your initial thought? So then let's talk about it then, because you already know the answer. You just
Yeah.
came because you wanted me to give you the answer. Well, I'm not going
Oh
to give
yeah.
you the answer because you
Right.
already know it. It's within because this is
Yes.
about you. It's nothing to do with anybody else. It's about you. So that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely I liked order. Um, Joanne
Mm-hmm.
said order, and everything is everything you ever need is already within. That's
Yeah.
it. That's
And
it. No matter
that's
what we
yeah.
think about, no matter where we take it, it's within. Um,
Mhm.
and you can't control or impose fear or you know what I'm saying. Like if you're doing this because you're afraid, you have to remove that fear to see if that's what you really believe. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I don't know like why, but fear has been. I talked about fear in my TikTok. I think I talked about fear on my business page today. I believe today in my motivational hour, I talked about my motivational time. I talked about fear again, but like be careful when you're afraid. You know what I'm saying? Like just be careful when you're afraid. Remove that fear and then say, okay, like this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at. This is my solid foundation. Once you remove that fear.
I just wanted to cover a couple things. I know our time is up, about signs of spiritual wellness. So signs that you're on, good, on the right path. Right meaning not meaning a certain path, but meaning you're becoming spiritually well, whatever path you're on. So we've kind of covered these, but I wanted to cover some of the ones we haven't. So we covered you intentionally live by a set of guiding beliefs, principles, or values. So your life isn't just off to the wind. There's a, I don't want to say a structure, but there's an anchor within yourself in terms of knowing who you are. You have a sense of meaning and purpose. Now, again, this can ebb and flow depending on life. Sometimes things can shift, but foundationally, you know that there's a meaning. You respect and appreciate different values and beliefs beyond your own. So just because you don't believe what I believe doesn't mean that you're wrong. And I'm right that there's a respect there. That's a sign of spiritual wellness, that you can cohabitate with people that don't think the way you think.
Right.
Um, you have a sense of belonging to something greater than yourself. You care about other people. So this is all a part of spirituality. Um, that is, again, it's not just about the self, that you care about the well-being of other people. um, you are comfortable with your level of involvement or non-involvement with the religious community. So again, that's that anchor in terms of being content with how you live your life, whether you're extremely involved or you're not involved. So
Right.
it's knowing yourself and being able to be anchored in the decisions you make for yourself. um, and then we talked about this, your actions are consistent with your beliefs, that there's a there's a balance, there's a I forget the word I was saying earlier, but yeah, there's not a discrepancy between your beliefs and then how you act and how you care out do out. And then why is it important? Research does show, because I'm all for the research in terms of how this connects to mental wellness. So research does show that mental wellness really helps with resiliency. So a lot of people with trauma, a lot of people overcome trauma, and a lot of people conceptualize trauma, meaning they're able to think about the impact that the trauma has had on their life. Um, when they're spiritual. So spirituality is known to be a buffer or a way to help people
Right.
understand, oh wow, I went through, there was a purpose in what I went through, and it wasn't necessarily to harm me, but look at, you know, um, kind of the bigger picture of it. And
Right.
that's what research shows, that spirituality can really help people become resilient and overcome life's challenges, because again, you believing that there's something outside of yourself. There's a big
Right.
picture going on. It can lead to peace, feeling connected, and it can give a source, like I said, of comfort and strength during difficult times. So when things are down, that you're not necessarily by yourself, that there's something else, that there's other supports out there for you that you can lean on to push you through those difficult times. And so
Right.
spirituality can offer that, and we know that that can lead to a more positive and healthy mental health. So
Right. Right. Well,
yeah.
definitely someone said it's okay to be different. So it definitely is okay to be different. Don't be ashamed if you're different,
Yes.
not the same. It's okay.
And it's not just okay, it's great.
Yeah.
It's not just okay. That it's wonderful. It's what makes you unique, So, I think it's something to be celebrated, not just tolerated.
Yay. Yay. So again, I'm not gonna hold y'all. We held y'all a little bit longer today, but we did start about 5 minutes later. So I appreciate y'all. I love everybody who has been
Thank
supported, everybody who
thank
wants to.
you.
Y'all know I love everybody. Y'all know how it is. Um, First of all, y'all know country extremely. So
Nothing wrong with it.
y'all gonna get the real me all the time. But I love y'all. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram. I'm Demasha Katrina, Coach Demasha Katrina. Facebook Zip Mouth. Podcast Zip Mouth Motivation. I have two. The one is the old me, is the healing, going through the process. This one is the still me healing and going through a process, but this is a different me. So that one is it, my motivation rebirth. So and then I think that's it. On Twitter is it my motivation. Most other platforms is it my motivation. TikTok is it my motivation, same thing, all the way through. So I'm easy to find. And Dr. Sierra, how can they find
You
you?
can find me at www.holisticsoulcareonline.com, Instagram, Holistic Soul Care Online, Facebook, Holistic Soul Care LLC. You can find me there. You can email me. Um, you can call me. Yeah, and we can chat and talk. A lot of my sessions are virtual, so we don't have to be in the same space. You don't have to be in Florida to connect. So I look forward to it. Thank you
Yeah.
all for showing up, and I really appreciate the same as the Masha, the interaction and the consistency. and your feedback, you know, again, because we all can have different ways of thinking. So we welcome that.
Definitely. So I appreciate y'all. Good night. I love y'all. We'll see
Good
y'all
night.
next Wednesday for our next show. And we
Yes.
out of here. Love y'all. Good night.
Bye.